Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar. We've got a little bit of a different setup for you guys today. So we're going to be chatting to three of my colleagues from the TEFL Org about their experiences teaching abroad online and just advice on courses and how they work. Welcome. If you've got any questions, please do say hi, tell us where you're from, and just drop your questions in the comments below, and we'll get to them a little later on. My name's Rachel, so I'll be kind of hosting the webinar today, and my lovely colleagues are Alan, Richard, and Luke. Guys, hello. Could you maybe introduce yourselves? Let's start with Alan, and then we can just get to some questions once we know a little more about you.
Sure. So hi, my name's Alan. I've been working for the TEFL Org for almost 10 years now. It'll be my 10-year anniversary in May this year. I am based just north of Inverness in Scotland at the moment, as we're all working from home. And that's me.
Great. Rich, maybe next.
Hi, thanks, Rachel. My name's Rich, as you can see. I'm not sure if anyone's caught any of the webinars before, but I have been on one or two of the webinars before, so you might have seen me then. Otherwise, I'm based not too far from Alan, up in Inverness. As he's mentioned, we do work from home at the moment. I've been with the TEFL Org for about a couple of years. I think just about 2 years next month, I think. Flown. It's the whole time been spent in lockdown, so it's been an interesting onboarding with the company. But no, it's been fantastic. I work here as an advisor and as one of the tutors. So yeah, nice to meet you all.
And I'm Luke. I've been at the TEFL for almost a year now. I used to work, I did a bit of work in teaching in Shanghai in China, and I also did online, and that was before, and then I now work sort of for the TEFL Org in business development. So yeah, I've been here almost a year and really enjoying it.
Ace. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So we've got some people joining us from all over the world. So we've got Susan from Nigeria. Hi. Renee from Switzerland. Nina from Birmingham. Hello. Great. Yeah. Tell us where you're from. Say hi and just drop some questions in the comments if you've. Okay, brilliant. We'll get to some questions that we've prepared, and then we'll get to yours a little later. So first off, first question for all of you is, what got you into teaching and how did you get started in TEFL? So maybe we'll start with Alan there and just work through.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of getting into TEFL, it was really sort of by chance. It was a complete fluke. So I hadn't really considered teaching at all when I was growing up. And then after I completed university, I was sort of stuck in not a rut, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do after I completed my 4-year degree. So one of my university tutors suggested that I go abroad to live in Spain and teach English for a while, and then that'll give me the chance to not only improve my Spanish skills but also earn a bit of money on the side, and then that'll give me a year or so chance to sort of get an idea of what I wanted to do, figure out if I wanted to pursue teaching or move into sort of like a different field or that sort of thing. So yeah, I applied for the British Council English Language Assistant Programme. So I did that in my final year of university. The process, it was about 9 months, I'd say, from the application to getting out to teach English in Spain. But the application, it was a mixture of obviously an application to complete and some references. I think one was from my tutor and one was an employer reference. And then I had an interview in Glasgow where I spoke about what I wanted to get out of the program, and also about sort of my Spanish language skills, those sorts of things. So yeah, it was really by chance, but yeah, I ended up spending 2 years teaching English in Spain afterwards. So I was based in Cáceres the first year, and I was up in Galicia the second year. So yeah, it was a really good experience, but yeah, it was by total chance. And the way that the program works as well, I didn't really find out where I was going to get placed in Spain until maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the start date of the program. So it was a really good experience. I met tons and tons of people on it, so it was fantastic.
Brilliant. Awesome. Great to hear. And Rich, what about your experience? How did you get into TEFL?
It's not exactly the same as Alan, but maybe the same sort of time of life. I'd just done my university course, and I was working in the City of London, living the dream, jumping on the tube and living like a sardine for half the time and spending all of my money on rent without being able to do anything. And I think I mentioned before, my disdain of the English and the British weather was one of my driving forces to.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
No, it helps to motivate you to go overseas. Certainly in a cold a day like today, a midwinter's day, grey all around you with a degree and a British passport, which at the time was more valuable than it is obviously since Brexit, unfortunately. But back then you could just get a job fairly easily. So TEFL was something which had been mentioned by a few people, as I think just because I talk a lot. They basically said, yeah, you'd be good to, make money out of it. Why don't you teach English? You seem to talk non-stop in English all the time. So, if you want to go and live overseas, it might be a good way to do it. So I did a slightly different program to Alan's, but it was a sit-down program. It was actually out in Costa Rica, which was an 8-week program. Me and a load of Americans, basically. It was really good fun, though. You could have stayed in the TEFL Centre there, but I wanted to learn Spanish. That was one of my main motivations for actually getting into TEFL. I think wasn't just to teach; it was to learn a language. And I'm not really one for a classroom. I'd just done school and college and university and everything else. I didn't really want to be back in this, in a classroom learning a language again. So, obviously, going over to Costa Rica, and I chose to live with a homestay family. Which we get the question quite a lot, actually. How do you go around getting into a new country? How do you settle? How do you do X, Y, Z? I suppose different people have different strengths, weaknesses, skills. One of I think the key attributes that a good TEFL teacher can have is the ability to jump into fairly unknown situations, dive in at the deep end, and do things the hard way as well. So living in a host family stay where they didn't speak a word of English, I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I think the 12-year-old daughter spoke a little bit of English, and she kind of acted as a translator. But that kind of was really good at teaching you the kind of skills that you need for teaching English as well as a second language. A lot of non-verbal communication, drawing pictures, dancing. I mean, I was dancing foods by the end of the first week, but it was a really fun way to get into it and really experience. And as I said, it was a sit-down program. Then it was a long time ago, before they had the really kind of robust platforms that we've got for doing it online now. So the online platforms back then were shabby at best, I would say. They were certainly getting going. So the option of doing the kind of courses that we offer just wasn't on the table back then. It was obviously a lot more expensive. You did get the experience of living in Costa Rica, but in terms of the course content, it didn't really offer anything other than one observed teaching session, which was a 20-minute class somewhere in the local community. But yeah, and I've never looked back. That was around 20 years ago now, and I'm still working within ESL now, and absolutely love it. So that's me. Thanks, Rachel.
That's great, thanks. And Luke, can you tell us a little bit? Just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your experience.
Yeah, of course. Mine's slightly different to Alan and Rich. I sort of finished uni, didn't know what I was going to do career-wise. I did my university degree in music production, which, unless you want to be a DJ or work in a studio, is quite limiting. And I felt like I'd sort of finished that part of my sort of life once I'd finished uni. So I was like, I want to do something completely different. So I did my own research at what sort of opportunities I had with a degree that would allow me to sort of travel and work at the same time, which is where I found TEFL. I did a TEFL not knowing where I was going to go. I just wanted to get the course done. So I actually did an online TEFL. So I did that, and as soon as I did that, I sort of looked at what countries I wanted to go to, and China felt like sort of massive jump in the deep end, which I was all for at the time. I wanted something completely different. Was frustrated with living in England, similar to Rich. So definitely wanted something new. And that's when I applied for, I didn't just apply in China. I think I did apply for South Korea and a couple of other places, but I got a really good response when I initially, once I had the qualification and went looking for a job, I had lots of offers. So I sort of sat down with my offers of 3 or 4 companies and decided that was which one I wanted to go for, and went and taught in Shanghai for a year. And the only reason I stopped doing that in Shanghai was COVID hit. So when COVID hit, I made the decision to fly back to the UK. But the company I worked for still allowed me to stay with them, and I taught online for them for another year. And I actually kept the same students. So the students that I was teaching face-to-face in China, I was then teaching online in the UK. So yeah, that's sort of what I did within teaching.
Great, thanks. So we've got quite a lot of a diverse amount of experiences there. So kind of going back a bit to kind of how you started as well. The next question we've got is which qualifications or previous teaching experience do you have? Because we get this question a lot. I noticed some people have asked that in the comments already. So yeah, if you just kind of say like what qualifications or if you had any teaching experience before getting into TEFL. Al, we'll start with you again.
For me, I didn't have any previous teaching experience at all. I did have some experience of tutoring when I was at university, but it was more on a sort of one-to-one basis. But in terms of applying for the British Council English Language Assistant Programme, I just needed my university degree, which could be in any field of study. And I think I needed a sort of pre-intermediate level of Spanish. So if I wanted to apply for teaching in Spain. But yeah, no TEFL qualification requirement, no sort of previous teaching experience. So it was great for those that are sort of looking to sort of dip their toe in the water and get some sort of classroom experience, but not just be the only person in the classroom, because being a language assistant, there was always a teacher in the classroom with me. So I would teach small groups of students or take over and help with some activities. But yeah, it was just as an assistant, so it was great to have another person in the classroom. And it also helped as well with the different activities, if it was like speaking activities, those sorts of things, because you could go around and check with students as well how they were getting on. But yeah, no previous teaching experience required for that position.
Great, yeah. And Rich?
Yeah, I mean,
which
like Alan,
qualifications do you
like
have?
as we said sort of earlier, just come out of university when I got into TEFL. So mine was just a degree in international relations, which, I mean, if you want to be creative with your CV, you can apply it to TEFL, but not really. You know, it's not an English language or an education-based degree, which maybe just sidestepping the question for a moment, just on that point, is something that I get asked, and I'm sure the others will, say the same, that we get asked a lot, certainly very, very often, how important it is to have either a degree or to have a specific degree with regards to teaching English. And it's something that we would like to, when we were, I think all of us TEFL teachers working there were more opportunities for those without a degree. I mean, we'll just clear that elephant in the room right now, because it is a fact that there are still plenty of opportunities for those without a degree, but there were more historically than there are now. Certain countries have tightened up. You know, back in the day, you could turn up in Thailand and teach without a degree. Thailand, you know, had a really big kind of big clean of house a couple of decades ago now, and since then, a lot of other countries in that sort of part of the world have become a little bit stricter in terms of their degrees. You'll see people that TEFL's a big wide world, and you can TEFL anywhere with anything in some form of teaching or some nuance somewhere along the line. But to officially work legally with the right correct paperwork, you know, on the right visa, a degree is going to help. So those who are getting into TEFL with a degree, it doesn't need to be in any field at all, as you know, we'll you know, attest to. It can be in any field. It does need to be a bachelor's degree. It can have been gained online. That's absolutely fine. Some of the best universities and colleges now run their courses online, and you know, as long as it has accreditation, then you'll be fine. It would, I would say, enhance your application if your degree is in linguistics, languages, English, or education. It will maybe put you onto the top of a pile or raise an extra eyebrow when they come across your CV, but I don't think it's going to really give you a huge advantage over somebody who has a music degree or an international relations degree or a degree in anything else. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have any teaching experience whatsoever going to TEFL, as many people don't. I had a degree, but honestly, it would depend on where you are teaching. There are some parts of the world where you'll be absolutely fine without your degree, and just with a TEFL, you'll still get work. You find that a lot of the companies at the moment are asking for more experience. It's because the market's slightly limited, with the world still slumbering out of COVID, if you like. There will be more opportunities again, and once all those opportunities do exist, you'll find that the filtering and asking for candidates who have X, Y, Z years of experience and a degree in English, for example, you know, these aren't requirements to work in most capacities. The only requirement ever for a degree, when it's explicit and it's set in stone, is it's going to be for a working visa. Some companies may have really stringent policies, and I can't comment on all of them, but generally speaking, it's going to be for certain working visas in certain parts of the world, and it doesn't matter what the degree is in. And quite often then as well, experience will just be preferable. It's you know, it's desirable. Most of us who have worked in TEFL didn't actually teach at all in any capacity beforehand. We went into it brand new, and with a bag of nerves and a really, really, really in-depth lesson plan that you've got for your first class, and it gets easier from there. But you know, TEFL is an industry that will give you loads of opportunity to go on and professionally develop as well, if you get with the right school or the right trainer. You know, I've been TEFLing now for nearly 20 years, and certain schools and companies I work through have put me through post qualifications, advanced, you know, some of them for academic management, some of them like TKT, the Cambridge Young Learner Certificate, that I think EF put you through those kind of programs as well. So yeah, a lot of the qualifications you can pick up whilst you're on the job, but the initial qualification is you need your 120 hours of TEFL, and in some cases a degree. But yeah, that's about it really.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, we get this question a lot about needing previous teaching experience, but it's actually a career that a lot of students go into from sort of doing a career 180. Like Luke, like you said, you were kind of sick of a classroom and music and that kind of thing, and you just wanted something completely different. And that's a really common way to get into teaching English abroad. So yes, as we've talked about here, sometimes needed experience necessarily. So yeah, thanks all. That was helpful. I was going to ask Luke the same question, but you kind of covered that in your first answer, so yeah, I'm not leaving you out. Okay, so if we go, if we move on to the next question, so where did you teach? Who did you teach? And why did you pick the country that you originally chosen? Is our next question. Let's mix it up a bit and start with Luke this time.
Great. Well, yeah, like I said before, China. So I picked China because I did want to go as extreme as I could in the sense of a culture change. And I was always interested in sort of China as a country and wanted to actually experience it for myself. People hear a lot, you hear a lot of sort of things about China, and I wanted to see if, you know, all of it was true. And some of it was, most of it wasn't. And it was great to sort of see it firsthand. And I found the people were super friendly. It was really advanced. But one of the shocking things for me was how advanced the cities were. I sort of went in maybe a bit naive, thinking they were going to be sort of not as advanced as the Western cities, but they were more advanced. The subways are more efficient. The shops are easier to use. Their version of Amazon is quicker and cheaper and more reliable. Everything was advanced. So that was the biggest shock for me. But sort of teaching there, and then it was very easy for me to adapt, especially going with no experience. I'd never been to China before. Sort of everything was flung straight to me. I was in a classroom teaching a week after I landed. And obviously, one of the biggest questions we get is, were you nervous on your first class? How long was it before you started actually teaching your own classes? Normally, the first class is the only class that you're nervous in. Once you finish that first class, it just becomes second nature. So, yeah. And then obviously moving to online was a big change. And teaching online is very different to teaching face-to-face. And there were a lot of challenges moving the content that I planned to an online setting, because a lot of the stuff I did with sort of the younger classes were games and throw a dice and run around the room and find the flashcard. You can't really do that in an online class. So adapting to the online was definitely a challenge. And I would say sometimes it's a little bit harder to teach online than it is face-to-face. You lose a lot of the tricks you learn in face-to-face teaching. But it's definitely easier than you might think to engage, especially kids. I mean, adults, if you're teaching adults online, there's a certain level of focus, but you would imagine that with 5-year-old children, it would be almost impossible to keep 8 of them on an iPad or a laptop for 45 minutes to an hour. But it actually, if you build your lesson to a certain degree, they do listen and they are engaged. So it's not as bad as some might think for online, especially with the young kids. They're normally happy to see your face and engage. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just part of our kind of reality now as well, isn't it? It's one of those things you just kind of have to adapt to. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Luke. And Rich, what about you? Basically, why did you choose where you taught? Maybe you've already said about the weather, but Costa Rica is certainly sunnier. But yeah, what kind of students did you teach as well?
So sorry. So where did I teach and what kind of students? Yeah. Sorry, I have a habit of answering my own questions that actually weren't asked. So I just wanted to check what we were asking there, Rachel. All right. Yeah, I've worked.
Sorry.
I worked in Costa Rica where I started. I have also worked in China. I was there for about 10 years, 2 or 3 cities in China. Yeah, about 10 years there. I was in Spain. I was in Italy. Done a couple of jobs in Vietnam. And I've also had a couple of positions in Hong Kong. So yeah, kind of, I think that's it. I forget, if I'm honest with you, it's been a while I've been in TEFL. I forget all the places now, but I think that's all of them. My favorite students or favorite place, I don't know. Probably China. I think probably China all round. I think we've answered this on one of the webinars before. I remember talking about the fact that China has a really good kind of well, I think in terms of all of the boxes ticked, China was really, really good when you've got, a really, really good salary, a really good amount of holidays, really good kind of pace of life, really, really good lifestyle out there. And then the students in China obviously are, super, super motivated as well. They're really, really keen students, really engaging. So I think all round, probably China gave the best opportunities to me. And I think but I've got friends that I still keep in touch with who were students when they were 6, 7, 8 years old, who are now at university. I keep in touch with these guys from Costa Rica, from China, from Spain. My Spain, I had some really, really good adult students who immersed me into the local town where I was living, and they were my route in, because in many of the positions in the sort of Japan, China, Korea, Vietnam, a lot of the time you'll be part of a teaching team over there with other foreign teachers, and generally speaking, you'll be fully onboarded, and you'll have your sort of orientation. Maybe you'll be observing teachers for the first week rather than throwing you straight in like Luke was, a week into his flight. He's in the classroom. The sort of schools I've worked at that are bigger in China, they would really, they'd let you have a couple of days for your jet lag. You'd then get a local person who'd go and make sure you're set up with the hospital, the banks, everything that you need that maybe you can't do for yourself. You'd be assigned a local buddy who'd then show you where the local sports facilities or restaurants, bars, shops, whatever the foreigners do there. And you pretty much jump into their pond and become friends with the other teachers. Sometimes people would break off and make their own friends and do their own thing, but I've seen a lot of cycles in TEFL where they kind of just move within their cohort of teachers, whereas jobs within Europe, particularly those I've had in Spain, where you're maybe just one teacher in a school, that's where you have to really rely on yourself, maybe your language skills, but more so your students, particularly if you've got adult students, they're a fantastic source of friends, because they'll be more than happy to talk to you outside of class when they're not paying for it as well, because lo and behold, you'll probably be speaking English, and again, you then have a really great opportunity to improve your Spanish or your Chinese. So yeah, I mean, I've taught all over. I think in terms of the most beautiful country, it's difficult to beat Costa Rica anywhere on this earth, for natural beauty and just absolute, jaw-dropping nature and scenery every day. But in terms of a really good, healthy lifestyle, savings, lots of holidays, China was very, very good. And I've heard similar things with South Korea and Japan as well. I don't know if it was just a few cases, but I've heard Indonesia, for example, very, very high teaching hours. You could do up to sort of 50, 60-hour weeks in Indonesia, teaching, weeks, which is, I've heard was quite extreme, but it's not somewhere I've worked. But yeah, generally, the problem is when people get into TEFL, more so the difficulties that we have in dealing with a lot of the inquiries concisely or precisely, are that people ask us very open questions, what's it like to do X, Y, Z? And you really do need to research and have as much information on the area that you're looking for, the country that you're looking for, the city that you're looking for within that country, because all of the jobs and all of the positions, they will vary from country to country, and again from school to school within those countries. So it's not to say that it's not okay to get in touch with a very ambiguous inquiry, but I think that quite often people think that TEFL just has this kind of one rule, one system around the world, and that this is how it works. And it's not. All of the different countries are going to have nuances and their own perks, and working regulations, national holidays, all of these things to consider. So try and really research somewhere that you think you'd like to go, and then find out about the teaching for that country, rather than, I don't know. As I said, it's certainly some of the issues that we have in directed inquiries are to try and give specific answers to very, very kind of worldwide general inquiries. We have really good blogs and guides. Alan, you'll probably be able to maybe touch on this a bit more. I know one of our colleagues here, Erin, writes fantastic guides on Latin America, on Europe, on the Far East, and we break everything down country by country. Alan, that's available just through our blog, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I'll share some links in the comments section. I'll pop some links to our country guides in there. But yeah, we've got country guides in Europe, Central and South America, the Middle East and North Africa, and Asia as well. So yeah, I'll pop links into the chat for everyone to view.
Thanks. Yeah, just that would be a good starting point, because you can find a lot of information. It does, as I said, vary from country to country, and so will everyone's experiences of TEFL. It varies, but yeah, I think a lot of people have very good things to say about China, and the Far East generally, in terms of the whole balance and everything considered.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Thanks all. Alan, would you like to just say a little bit about your experience teaching in Spain? Kind of what kind of students you taught, and why it was great, and why it wasn't so great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think I lucked out when it came to teaching, because the position that I got for both years, the first and second year, I was only working part-time, so my maximum sort of hours per week were sort of capped at 12. So those are just my contact hours at school. So I had absolutely tons of time to practice my Spanish outside school, and do a lot of sort of visiting of tons of different towns and cities that are not necessarily on the sort of tourist route. So it was a really great chance to immerse myself in the Spanish culture and improve my Spanish language skills when I wasn't in the classroom. But yeah, the first year I was in Spain, I was teaching in Extremadura, which is just to the west of Madrid. So it's about a sort of 3.5, 4 hour bus ride from Madrid. And I was teaching at an adult language, a school for adult language learners. So all of my students were aged 16 and above, and there was a real variety of age groups as well. So we had a good, because it was a university city, there was a good sort of student population there of people in their sort of late teens, early 20s, doing undergraduate, postgraduate and master's courses. But there was also people that were working on a full-time basis, and also people going into retirement as well. So in terms of the classes, there's maybe about 20 to 25 students per class. All of the classes were sort of based on levels. So most of my classes were either sort of intermediate or advanced level learners. I did have a few sort of pre-intermediate classes as well. But yeah, my working hours, I didn't really start work on a Monday until 4 p.m. And I was working Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then I had Fridays off as well. So it was a really good chance for, well, every weekend was a long weekend, but a really good chance to visit other parts of Spain as well during my sort of downtime. Yeah. In my second year, I was up in the northwest of Spain in Galicia. And coming from Scotland, it was very similar in terms of weather, in terms of the sort of Celtic influence, and also things like they've got bagpipes and everything. So it was really sort of uncanny compared to Scotland. But it was a definite sort of 180 from teaching sort of in Cáceres, just with the sort of climate, those sorts of things. But it was a beautiful part of Spain. I was teaching at a secondary school, and most of my students were sort of between the ages of 12 and 16. Those classes were great as well, but the thing with teaching younger learners is the motivation's not there like you have with adult language learners. So it's either, well, because it's school, it just depends on how fun and engaging you make the lesson. So a lot of the lessons that I was planning and helping out in, it was things that they wanted to do or things that they were interested in. So we're talking about TV shows, about music they listened to, and they also had a school trip to London. So we spent a good few months preparing them with activities that would help them when they get there. So when they're sightseeing, so things like taking public transport or things like ordering food in a restaurant, that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, it was a fantastic experience. I loved it. In terms of yeah, the best things about Spain, obviously the food is absolutely amazing. But like I was saying, like Rich was saying earlier as well, it's definitely sort of the relationships that you build with the people that you meet, both your students and as well the English language teachers there as well. The majority of the teachers in the schools that I was working at didn't have English as their first language. I did work with some student teachers as well that were just getting into teaching. So it was great outside the classroom because there was tons of time to either travel together or go for a meal or go for drinks after work. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. And the work-life balance in Spain as well. I know I was only working part-time, but yeah, there was tons of stuff to do outside, either sort of sports-wise. There was a gym and swimming pool close to the school. And also if you like the outdoors as well, like Extremadura is an amazing place of like natural beauty. There's UNESCO sites all over the region. So yeah, beautiful nature reserves, amazing if you like the outdoors as well. And yeah, not the sort of typical sort of city vibe that you'd get in Madrid or Barcelona or Valencia. So yeah, I loved it.
I think we've lost
And
Rachel for a moment.
I
Oh, sorry, Rachel. I think you've frozen for a second.
Oh, really? Am I back? Can
Yeah,
you
you're
hear
back
me
now.
now?
Yeah, but you have to repeat yourself. Sorry.
Okay, good. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that, guys. I'm currently in British Columbia, which is brilliant and beautiful, but the mountains interrupt the Wi-Fi signal a little, I think. Okay, brilliant. So I think we kind of covered most of our questions. So we've got a good one from Rika here, who's, is it difficult for non-native speakers to get into TEFL and get good jobs? If maybe we can direct that one to Luke.
Yeah, certainly. It really depends. It's certainly one of the things that sort of, if you're looking at sort of tiers of jobs and what they're looking for, native speakers are normally seen as, you know, top tier, but there are definitely opportunities for non-native speakers. It really depends country to country. But certainly I know, because I taught in China. In China, the requirement sort of in the whole of China is native speakers, and they're quite sort of stringent on that. I think that's more a government thing. I think the government has set sort of the requirements quite high in China now, because they used to be, I don't think they used to have as tight sort of guidance on what's needed, but there certainly are countries that non-native isn't sort of is accepted, and certainly online online opportunities. There are a lot of online opportunities for non-native speakers, so it might be a little bit tougher, but it's certainly not there are certainly lots of opportunities out there. But yeah, online would be an option, but there are some countries that you can definitely get a job with sort of non-native.
Yeah, definitely. It's not essential. There are certain places, unfortunately, that do require it, like Luke said, but it's certainly not going to stop you from getting into some opportunities. Okay, we've got another question from Lynn, who says, I'm just in the middle of taking the course. I'm wondering if you felt nervous about, and did you set up your own lesson plans? So maybe, Rich, you can take that one for us.
Yeah, I set up a lesson plan that I think could have taught a class for about 6 weeks on that one lesson plan that I made for my first class. I think it was ridiculous. So yeah, Lynn, don't worry, it'll just get easier and easier. I think Luke touched on it earlier. Your worst class is your first class. It's simple as that. No matter how good your first class is, it will probably still be the worst class you've ever done, unless you just have one of those classes where it all just falls apart. You might have one of those one day. It's you just for no reason other than it just falls apart in front of your eyes, and there's that's when you hope that you've far enough into your career that you've got enough resilience just not to cry your way out of the door and sort of manage to pick up the class. But no, a lot of teaching is obviously going to be rinse and repeat. You know, you plan. I mean, if you're like me, I was planning for, I think a good week. I was planning for my first like 40-minute class, and I used about 10% of all the materials I prepared. I had so much more than I needed, and very, very quickly, the class taught me so much that my course didn't teach me, which is why it's really important to try and take a combined course if you can. Again, that's not a plug to sell a slightly more expensive course, but we get asked this question. If I had a penny for every time I was asked this question, to be honest, is it worth taking a combined course? There's your answer. The question there that Lynn's asking about those initial classes, it's fantastic if you've gone through that experience as part of your TEFL course. And it's not imperative to the qualification. You will still gain the certificate without the in-class practice, but it's when you see what it's actually like to present, even if it's just to your peers, to a group of 4 or 5 other trainee teachers around you, it's nerve-wracking. You see how quickly things happen, how quickly time goes. You maybe get used to using a timer and keeping a track of your public speaking and how quickly you get through, what you're trying to say and the materials. So yeah, without coming too far off the question, it's really helpful if you've had the experience in your in your training. You can do that online or you can do it in person, but it really does help you to not only prepare for your first class, but a lot of the time, any jobs that you'll have, usually you're going to have to give a 5 or a 10-minute demo class. I mean, it used to be back in the day, it'd be over Skype. These days, it'll be on Zoom or any of their platforms that they have. And again, if you've been through that experience and already delivered a mock class and explained materials, talked your way through and maybe even, role played a couple of activities, you'll be so much more better prepared. But yeah, with regards to setting up your own first class and your first lesson plan, I mean, Lynn, your question there, do we have material? I mean, yeah, we do. Again, we have our TEFL shop and our resources, which are available online. You can have a look through there. But otherwise, it depends on where you're working. Most schools, online platforms, they will supply whether it's just the lesson plans or whether it's the full kind of curricular pedagogy and assessment, they should have it all there for you, in which case you just sort of look at the lesson plan or the learning outcome for that class, and then you put a bit of your own ideas or your own sort of activities in there. But my first class, it was from scratch. I only knew the level of my students, the number of students in the class, and their course book that they were studying. That's often a really good go-to resource if you don't know what to teach the students. Is what are they learning in school? What does their English book look like for what they're doing in school? And try and align it with that. Look at the language, the grammar, the syntax, the different sets of vocabulary, and try and, I don't want to say plagiarize because we shouldn't be promoting that, but borrow ideas from what they're doing around them, from their own schoolwork, and I mean, see if the provider has lesson plans and materials already. But as Luke said, your lesson planning will get much shorter. Your lessons will get much easier, and once you've been through that first lesson, you've broken your duck, you've got it out of the way. You instantly see X, Y, Z worked really, really well. I'm going to do that again, or that's how I can change it for a bigger or a smaller, a different level class. Or X, Y, Z absolutely fell apart, and now I know why it fell apart. It will be very, very apparent as to why things don't work or didn't work, and then you get almost excited about your second lesson plan because, yeah, okay, I know how I can do that now, and I just need to tweak this and this about it, and then I'm going to get to, you know, do it again, and I know it's going to work this time. And, you know, that breeds confidence. You know, that whole process breeds confidence in a new teacher anyway. So, yeah, don't worry, Lynn. Plan to death. If you haven't got any materials that have been supplied to you by your students or your school, then yeah, have a look on our TEFL resources part of our webpage, and we've got, you know, general lesson plans. The lesson plans are fairly explicit in terms of the packs and what they consist and what, you know, what's available in there. But you know, do feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions around that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Rich. That's a good answer. Okay, thanks, Lynn, for that question as well. That was really good. We've got another question from Hannon, who's specifically asking about Thailand, but it could be a good one to ask generally. Is it true that in Thailand it's easier to find a TEFL job if you're in country versus applying from abroad? So this is a question we get quite a lot as well. Do you need to be in country to apply for jobs, and what the differences are abroad? Obviously depends, there's lots of, maybe Alan, you can elaborate on that one a bit.
Yeah, like you said, it completely depends on the school. If you are in country, it is a lot easier to find work because not all roles are advertised online. So you can hear through word of mouth, through people in the local town or city about potential roles that are coming up at schools. If you're in country as well, it's also a lot easier to interview as well because you can actually visit the school, you can talk to other teachers that work there, and you've got an idea of their sort of student base. So you can do a lot more sort of research whilst you're in country. That's not to say that you can't find work if you're outside of Thailand. So if you're outside of Thailand and you're applying, you can find roles advertised online on our own TEFL Job Centre, but also on online jobs boards like TEFL.com and ESLcafe.com as well. With those roles, they normally ask you to send in a copy of your CV or fill in an online application form. That's the first stage. And then they'll take you through their application process or interview process. So it might be just one interview or a series of interviews over Zoom or Skype. But yeah, there's sort of pros and cons for each. But yeah, you can find work in country because not all vacancies are posted online. The only thing I'd say is as well is just be wary of the visa that you go, or the visa that you currently have got, because sometimes you can only apply for a work visa in your home country. Mm-hmm. So if I was in Thailand, for example, looking for work, and I was on a tourist visa, I'd have to go back to the UK, apply for the work visa in the UK, and then fly back to Thailand, because I don't think it's possible in some countries to change your visa type from tourist to work visa. So it's also just worth checking what the visa requirements are.
Just to add to that as well, a lot of, from my experience, especially in China, a lot of teachers that I met would initially get a job with one company, would go out, fulfill maybe a 6-month contract, and then find other work. And there are more opportunities if you're in the country, because companies don't have to worry about waiting for you to get your visa, waiting for you to fly out, to get accommodation. You're already there. So a lot of people from my experience would actually gain employment to get, a visa and flight, go out, fulfill their contract with them, and then be able to sort of look elsewhere. And, some people would even, I had a few people I met that flew out and within a month had actually got a different position, a higher paying job, less hours, and moved on straight away. Sometimes your contract will state you have to do a minimum of this much in order to sort of get the flights reimbursed, and that's to stop people doing that, is just flying out and then immediately jumping sort of ship. But there are ways to do it. And that is sort of a popular option, is always get employment first, because it helps with your visa. And then once you're in the country, you'll find other teachers that are teaching at a company, and they'll say, oh, we've got free jobs at the minute. So yeah, it is easier if you're in the country, but you can still find employment sort of not in the country, definitely. I think we've lost Rachel again.
I think, am I back? I think I missed you for a second there. Am I back now?
Yeah, that's you back there, yeah.
Well, I'm back. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so I think we've got maybe time for one more question. And I'm really sorry, Rich. This is your most hated question. It's from Carol. It's about Brexit.
Well,
Brexit, I assume now we need a visa to teach anywhere in the world. How difficult is it to get those?
Well, yeah, I mean, Brexit obviously doesn't affect everywhere in the world, but it does affect the EU.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a very, very short discussion. That's it. You have to have EU right to work to legally work in the EU at the moment for most jobs. Now, there are digital nomad visas available, so there are still opportunities to. I mean, I suppose where I'm when I think Europe and think Brexit, I just think Spain, because it was such a huge ESL market before. It still is. It's a very, very big market. It takes a lot of teachers there, and it was just such a perfect opportunity for Brits. Obviously geographically where we are, we love Spain already. We know how to order maybe a beer in Spanish. Most British people do already. So it was a really good destination for particularly those in the UK. Obviously we get a lot of teachers looking to TEFL from all over the world, not just in the UK, from outside of the EU, from America, it was always quite difficult to work there on the right visa. There are student visa ways around it, but they tends to be very expensive and kind of limited in terms of your work opportunities, but there are ways around. But yeah, Brexit's kind of put a big size 11 boot down on most of the opportunities for those who don't have EU right to work now. There will be, as I said, opportunities. I think, is it Czech Republic, Portugal? We've written really good blogs on digital nomading since Brexit, and there are still gaps to find yourself some positions in Europe. But generally speaking, we had two huge problems in that you had Brexit and then the pandemic, which were concurrent. They had right at the same time. It's not to suggest that the politicians or anyone would have actually given us some sort of a roadmap or an idea as to what they're going to be doing for English language acquisition in those countries, because it's still it's an industry which isn't going anywhere. It's the demand for learning English is still there. It's still growing. It's just a case of what it's going to look like, the long-term paradigm with Brexit. We just can't tell you, unfortunately, which is why Rachel introduced the question in the way that she did. I wish I could help people and tell you more about what the world's going to look like post-Brexit and post-pandemic. We're learning day by day, ad hoc. Ask any government at the moment. It's kind of it's difficult to plan at the moment. We still remain hopeful that there will still be some kind of bridges and visas that will be put in place to suffice the requirement for English teachers, which there are still huge demand, but at the moment countries have got more on their plates to deal with in terms of black holes that COVID have caused financially to countries at the moment. So don't really expect any concrete answers to come out anytime just yet. But we are noticing that the rest of the world, which is part of the question, we are noticing good signs at the moment. We're seeing opportunities popping up in all corners of the world, really. We're seeing opportunities in the Middle East, in South and Central America again, certainly across Europe, the Far East, as the English market, I wouldn't go as far as say it's booming again. There's a bit of a bottleneck that's caused by the lag of, a lot of teachers have got into TEFL over the last couple of years, and not everywhere has fully gotten on its feet and opened up and sorted out its immigration processes and these other, layers that have to be considered when taking on a TEFL job. So we're looking a lot better than we were this time last year, and a heck of a lot better than we were the year before that in terms of not TEFL, but what the world is looking like and where we're going to be able to go without, you know, too much issues in terms of the pandemic. But yeah, unfortunately, until we've got really what the world looks like outside of the pandemic, I don't think Brexit and TEFL are going to be high on the agenda still at the moment, unfortunately. So yeah, just kind of watch this space and take any opportunities that you can elsewhere. Russia's a huge ESL market. Russia's a very, very big ESL market. So consider any opportunities in that part of the world. And somewhere which didn't used to have as many opportunities, but we're starting to hear a little bit more, is sub-Saharan Africa as well. So hopefully there might be some opportunities coming in other parts of the world that haven't historically been ESL hubs. Yeah, but yeah, as I said, you know, difficult to really talk about Brexit without crying, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well at the moment with the pandemic, and like you say with Brexit, it's just key to be adaptable and think outside the box and research all your options, because things are changing all the time, and you know, we're adapting to things constantly as well, and all the things. So just yeah, I mean, a part of being a EFL teacher is just completely jumping out of your comfort zone, and maybe that's something that you have to think about when you're going into it as well, as how you're going to teach abroad. So yeah, that was a good question. Thank you. We hate discussing Brexit, but it's necessary for all the guys that I can see comments later on. We'll try and answer your questions, so do keep asking questions if you have got them. But yeah, thank you for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and that's bye from me, and bye from all of my colleagues here as well, I suppose.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.